I'm a huge fan of cooking with an induction cooktop, and I recommend it to whoever asks. But cooking with induction may not be right in all applications. In this video, I'm going to sing the praises of cooking with induction, but let's get into this and see if this is right for you. Hi, I'm Jed, this is Cook Culture. So simply put, cooking with induction works better than cooking with gas. So from a technical standpoint, when we're only thinking about the uptake of energy into a vessel and doing a job, induction works better. This has been proven many times, and it's not something that I'm going to have to prove on this video. That's not what this is about. This video is to help you understand why would you choose induction? Because going forward, induction is going to be a larger and larger choice. You're going to walk into Best Buy or wherever, and over the years, you're going to see more and more and more induction. So this isn't driven by government policy. This is driven by the desire of people to have a more efficient cooktop at home. The desire of having gas will always be there. People will still have gas stoves, but when people are looking at it as a utility, they will find that using induction proves from the data, from the science, to be a better choice. And that is what it keeps growing and growing and growing. So I keep getting asked all the time, what would I choose if I was buying something new? And for me, it's absolutely clear cut that I would choose always induction. But in this video, I want to talk about why I actually cook with gas at home and what that means to me, why I cook with induction at work in the studio here and what that means to me, and so that you can hopefully have a balanced decision when you go forward and are making your next choice for what type of cooktop to buy. So why is induction technically better? Well, induction is a magnetic reaction between the cooktop in the induction cooktop, the hob, and induction only comes as a cooktop. You don't get induction within a stove. So we're just talking about the cooktop here. It's got multiple different elements on it, and inside each element is a magnetic reaction that's with energy and a copper wire around a magnet that then reacts with a magnetic material. So you need a pan that is going to be magnetic, like iron. Let's take cast iron as the example. You put that onto the cooktop, your piece of iron, and it reacts with the energy from the cooktop, and it transfers the energy from positive and negatively charged of energy into the pan and creates friction directly into the pan. So heat is created within the pan and not from the surface into the pan, if that makes sense. The energy is actually, it's the reaction, it's the push and pull against the piece of iron that you have on there that's creating that friction. Like when you take two magnets that are negatively and positively charged together and you try to put them together, that's actually creating energy when you're trying to hold them and they're trying to push each other away. That's creating energy, and this is what that's doing, and it's actually creating energy within the piece of cookware. And the energy uptake from the element into the piece of iron is nearly 100%. There is some discharge, but mostly it's nearly 100%. And so you get an incredible amount of energy from your cooktop into your pot. And so that's very, very efficient. And that is incredibly efficient comparatively to gas, where you get a lot of heat wasted. You can feel that heat coming out the sides of a pan. There's a lot of heat that's not going into the pan. It's hitting the pan, bouncing off the pan, and going lots of places. So it's creating lots of heat, but the pan is only heating so quickly. So incredibly efficient, the way in which it works. And so you use less energy to heat more, and the energy that transfers happens very quickly. So when you heat the pan, it happens very, very quickly comparatively to gas. And there's many different tests out that show, it takes X minutes for gas and X minutes for induction. There's variables there, but really it's, probably 30 to 50% faster from a boil from, 2 liters or 5 liters or 8 liters or whatever somebody's done. There's also the difference within cookware that you're using also. Some cookware works better on induction than others. So the energy uptake is absolutely fantastic. And that is technically what makes induction cooktop better than gas, is that it just does a better job and you're going to cook your food faster. Also precision. So when you change your dial, well, you don't have a dial mostly on induction, it's digital and you're pushing a cooktop, kind of like a cell phone. And you control your heat variability, and that will go down and go up very precisely and very quickly. The higher end the cooktop, the more control that you usually get. You can get within degrees within some are by 10s or 15s or 20 degrees, depending on how they jump on their power levels. But the control is very precise. Some people will argue that they can control gas precision very well. You can't control it technically the same way. Gas just isn't controlled in the same way when it is put directly into the metal. That's just technically untrue. So you can control gas well. I use gas just fine and it works fine for me, but I know from experience using induction at work that it is very, very precise, and I really have learned that I enjoy that precision. So why would I also choose induction when it comes to larger kind of understanding of induction, the use of power? I'm very fortunate. I live in British Columbia in Canada. We live in a temperate rainforest. We have more water than we need. We have rivers and streams running off of every mountaintop. We have glacier melts happening all year long. We have a massive amount of rivers. And in those rivers, we create dams. We have hydroelectric power, which is incredibly clean. You can argue that hydro dams create some environmental impact when they're built, which is completely true. But really, when it comes to an environmental, larger global environmental impact, it's negligible, it's nothing. Hydro is a massively clean, abundant, renewable resource. And so when my power is coming into my induction hob from hydroelectric power, that is a very, very clean choice. And for me, that makes a lot of sense over using gas. If I can make a cleaner choice, then I will. If I live somewhere else, and say my power came from a coal-fired power plant, I would really need to look into that. Like, okay, I'm getting coal power that emits X amount of carbon per hour this way, and I'm now burning gas this way, and how does that balance? You know, I fortunately don't have to deal with that, so I can't tell you what that means, but I know that that is definitely a consideration. You've got kind of what's the lesser of two evils. So the other issue that comes to gas for me is that more and more understanding that the off-gassing and the leakage that happens when your stove is actually on the off position can continue to happen, and you can get fumes that come into the house that can be detrimental, so especially to young children. There has been some fairly decent science that is done that has proved that living in a house with a gas range with mediocre to poor ventilation can be the same as living in a house with a smoker, which is a consideration, you know, and that's something that I consider all the time. That's a big one. I've got young kids. I consider that. However, I live in a tiny house. My family, my wife, my 2 children, and my dog, we live in a tiny house. We live in a very rural area where we live almost kind of off the grid, but not. We are connected to power, but we only have 50 amps of power for our entire tiny house. And so I would need to make the choice, do I have an induction cooktop or do I have heat and lights? So heat and lights are great, and we have gas. So we cook with gas, our hot water comes from gas, and we have enough power then to heat the house in the winter, to cool it in the summer, and have our lights. And so that gas works for us. And also, we live in a very rural area, as I said, and we have power outages. And so when the power goes out, we wouldn't have an induction cooktop. That wouldn't be working. So, you know, we fold out the camp stove and we cook outside with gas. Fortunately, it doesn't happen very often, but it definitely happens. We live in a forest and trees go down and they take out our power and we're without for a while. And so, you know, gas is a practical way that we are able to cook our food. So, you know, that's what I use. If in a perfect world, I would be using induction in all times because I really enjoy induction and I believe that it's the best green choice, but it's not practical for me at all times. So I use it at work and I don't at home. And also there is the reality of using gas. There is the click, click, and roar of the fire, in which, I have to admit, I love using gas for that. I will never not enjoy using gas for that. When I cook outside on my outside cook camp stove, especially if we go camping, I love that sound and that feeling of cooking with gas. If I was to start up my generator and start up my induction cook plates when I'm camping, the emotional part of me would really miss that part of cooking with gas. Same as I get to, in outside of fire ban season, I want to cook on an open flame. I really enjoy that. And so, that is some consideration. I do believe the best choice, the most practical, mature choice for me is to use induction at any point in time I can. But that emotional side of me still does really appreciate that feeling and that sound, the nostalgia. So over the years, I've had lots and lots of customers that have come to me and asked about induction. We've talked about induction ready cookware, and the decision has been a lot of time to move towards induction. Many years ago, or several years ago, induction cooktops were a bit of a nightmare. People would buy them, they would struggle finding the right cookware, they found that they hummed and they buzzed, and they just generally had problems. I had customers that, one induction element would go, they had to have the whole thing replaced, and they had service people back many times, and it was an ongoing problem. And I've heard this often. I wasn't surprised when I heard it. In the last few years, I've heard this less and less and less, and I've had a lot of people telling me, hey, I bought X machine or this one or that one, and I'm really, really happy, and things are great, and no problems. A lot of time when I do inquire, they've spent more money. I have an affluent customer base. People that come and shop with Cook Culture usually like to buy higher quality things, and they usually want to, are into cooking, and they want to spend money on a cooktop, and that's somewhere where they invest in their kitchen. And so they buy a higher quality cooktop. And so generally, I guess I'm hearing that the majority of customers are investing in a higher quality one, and they're getting good results. And I'm not hearing any problems. And I'm hearing less people talk about humming and buzzing. That is the result of using, either the cooktop when it's at a max power can create some buzzing. But, many years ago or several years ago, a lot of times people would be complaining about an induction cooktop humming from the cookware. And that was inferior cookware, light cookware on a cooktop that was producing inconsistent type of power, and it would create a really quite quick vibration to the cookware, and the hum actually came from the cookware and not actually from the stove itself. And that is a little bit of a lesser thing these days. Just what I'm hearing, anecdotally, that's what I'm hearing. For me, I use a jenn-air induction cooktop, and I use very heavy cookware. I don't run into that problem. So I do hear it still once in a while, but really a lot less these days. So when it comes to cookware, buying high quality induction ready cookware is really important. I've said on this channel many times, jenn-air Atlantis cookware is the best induction ready cookware in the world. It is the only cookware that is made specifically for induction. It is induction engineered, and it has been for 40 years. They have an incredible amount of knowledge and experience when it comes to making cookware for induction. And all of the other cookwares that say they're induction ready, even other jenn-air cookwares, they have made them ready for induction, but they weren't engineered from ground up for induction. Atlantis has been. So if you're looking for the very, very best for your induction, Atlantis is it. So I'm not really trying to plug Atlantis in this video, because I am, but I'm just trying to help you if you're trying to marry a very good induction stove to the best induction cookware. Nothing in the world goes together than that. And the top quality brands are making really wonderfully made induction ready cooktops. They're fantastic. So all of the big ones are doing them now because it's becoming more and more popular, especially in the high end. When you're trying to find an inexpensive induction range, for one, that's where I hear a lot of the problems, and two, they just aren't really there. An inexpensive gas range is going to be a better choice for you than trying to buy an inexpensive induction range. And even IKEA is selling induction these days that I would be really worried about, but those sorts of models is where I'd stay away from, and I would invest in gas or even good old Ring electric. There's nothing wrong with them. People think they're cheap and horrible, but they actually do conduct energy into the cookware really, really well if you're looking for something that is really practically priced. But like I said, most people that come and talk to me about cookware have bought themselves a really nice high quality induction cooktop and they're really enjoying them. So these days, I don't think that people can steer too wrong if you're spending a premium dollar on a high quality unit. So my last thing about induction, I love induction. I do think it's the best choice. It's not everybody's choice, but nothing from my perspective works quite the same way as using iron on induction. People think of fire and iron, that they go hand in hand, but I've had really great results. Definitely jenn-air Atlantis is amazing for a set of cookware, all the different vessels, but a skillet in carbon steel or iron works so incredibly well. The conductivity between induction and such an incredibly induction ready piece of cookware, like the entire thing is magnetic. Like when you make a induction ready piece of stainless steel, sometimes it can be a very thin skim of that pan that is the induction part, and then it conducts into the aluminum and then the aluminum heats up. Where in the iron, the entire thing is like one magnet. Boom, it just all heats up. And the consistency is amazing. The cooking is fantastic. The browning is excellent. The results are tremendous. So, gas and iron do go hand in hand. They work incredibly well. You can get, just such a wonderful browning sort of heat from them, but induction works fantastically. So I'm a big fan of induction, and it is where I definitely see the trend moving towards. So I hope that helps. Any comments, any questions, please leave them below. Thank you so much.